Hello, I'm Dr. Alan Beyer, Executive Medical Director of Hoag Orthopedic Institute, but you may know me as the Doctor in the Dugout, our weekly radio show brought to you by the Hoag Orthopedic Institute. Today we're doing video though, and I'm here with a new member of our practice and of the Hoag Orthopedic Institute staff, Dr. Michael Hunter. Mike, thanks for being here with us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So whenever we have a new guest on the show who we're introducing to the community, we always like to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about where you grew up, where you trained, what made you choose orthopedic surgery, and just tell us the Mike Hunter story.
Yeah, so I'm not too far away. I grew up in Hemet, about an hour and a half away. Went to high school there, and then I went to Loyola Marymount University in LA for college. And then from there, I went to Loma Linda University for medical school. So the whole time I stayed around this area. And then for residency, I decided to go cross country and went to South Carolina. I just felt like I was going to get a better hands-on experience there. So I was there for 5 years, and we bought a house out there and had a great time. And ultimately came back to Hoag to do my 1-year hip and knee replacement fellowship. And then I did an extra year in New Zealand where I did mostly trauma surgery in Auckland, New Zealand, as well as a little bit of sports with the Olympic team and the rugby team, the All Blacks. And then I joined on staff here with Newport Orthopedics and Hoag Orthopedic Institute this past year.
So we're seeing a big trend today. I mean, when I was 40 years ago, when I finished my residency, I think I was the first fellowship trained orthopedic surgeon in our area of Orange County that there was. Now it seems like almost all of you guys and gals are doing fellowship training and some specialty training. Tell us a little bit why that whole thing has evolved and why such a greater number of candidates are now choosing to spend that extra year, or in your case, year and a half, 2 years, on subspecializing and just delving into one specific area of orthopedic surgery.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a push towards, on the hospital side as well as the private practice side, having clinicians join the group that are specialized in certain areas to increase the efficiency. Obviously, if you've only are doing several surgeries and treating a very specific patient population, you hone your skill to a higher degree. And so I think there's a push from the healthcare side. I also think there's some limitations going through our residencies now where in the past you had the ability to kind of pick and choose a little bit more what you wanted to see when you were going through your training. Now we have a lot of requirements through the medical board and ACGME that you may spend 6 months to a year on spine surgery and have no desire to do spine surgery when you're done. And so that limits your ability to kind of carve your own path. And so I think people feel like they need that extra year to kind of hone in on one set of skills that they're going to use for their practice.
And I think for the consumer side, it's very valuable too, because I think patients and residents of the local areas that we're in don't necessarily feel that they have to go out-migrate to the university to find that subspecialty training on a complicated problem, a non-everyday problem, when we have all these fellowship-trained physicians on our staff who can take care of it right here and really have the equivalent of a university faculty on staff at a community hospital like Hoag Orthopedic Institute.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. We've actually published some recent studies, and their main critique is, hey, you're private practice and you're at a subspecialty hospital. Are you getting the complexity of other places? Which in fact we are. And in fact, some of the university settings will send us patients to manage. And so I think that gives dividends to the fact that we have highly qualified people in every single area of orthopedics that you can imagine, and we're able to treat vast majority of problems.
So your subspecialty is adult reconstruction, total joint, hip and knee replacement for the most part.
Yep.
We're in an area right here, especially in Laguna Woods, where our studio is today, where we have such a significant number of patients and an age population, a demographic that's so in need of hip and knee replacement because the need on the Medicare baby boomer population for hips and knees is just on such an upwards trajectory. Tell us about what kind of things you're bringing to us now in terms of the latest and greatest in hip and knee replacement.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I think I saw probably 4 or 5 patients from Laguna Woods just this morning in my office before I drove over here. So it's definitely a great area to talk about joint replacement. And some of the new cutting edge trends that are developing are better pain management techniques. There's injections that we use prior to surgery and then at the time of surgery to help minimize your pain. we're getting a lot better at getting patients out of the hospital faster. I would say, 70 to 80% of my patients go home the same day from either a hip replacement or a knee replacement. And that's as long as they live with someone who's able to watch over them and they're, a healthy patient that doesn't have a lot of medical comorbidities. There's robots and there's augmented reality and increased technology used in arthroplasty. I do use that to some degree, although, clinically, the data is still out on whether it's a large benefit to the patient, but it's something that we're looking at in more detail. So those are kind of the main trends towards the newer age of arthroplasty.
Do you think we're at a point, robotics are a key word. There's some words in medicine that right away I sometimes feel they're almost more marketing tools than they are true scientific advantages. Advantages such like robot, stem cells, laser. People hear these words and they think right away, oh, that's the latest and greatest because, that it's using a robot. Tell us, the reality about this. Are robots really the future? Are robots needed on every case? Do robots necessarily give a better outcome? Give us a kind of a state-of-the-art summary of where we're at now with robotic surgery as it relates to total joints. It's certainly taken over some surgeries like prostate surgery, but is it really as necessary in orthopedic surgery?
I agree. I think there is a large portion of it that's marketing. I think, I get patients every day coming into my office asking about the nano knee and some of these marketing, techniques that are used. Oh, they do a minimally invasive incision, et cetera. But the reality is the incision and the certain amount of things need to be the same regardless of where you get your surgery done, because it takes a certain size incision to put the parts in and to put them in properly. And it also takes, a surgeon that's talented and knows what they're doing. And I don't think robots, from my standpoint, has really drastically changed my patient outcomes. I'd say I use it on about 10 to 20% of my patients. But again, I think we're pretty good and we have it down to a science how we do our knee replacements with or without the robot. And so I think the results are fairly equivalent. But to answer your question, in the future, I think we are going to be using them. There's newer goggles with augmented reality coming out that can help us make more accurate cuts. And it doesn't take up a large amount of space in the operating room. And so I think that's where we're headed from, the accuracy standpoint and also from a data collection standpoint, because we can plug all these numbers into a computer and get outcome scores. But again, I don't think at this point we can confidently say that it's a lot better to have a robotic knee.
You opened a window there that I want to walk through, and that's about data and outcomes. So Hoag Orthopedic Institute, which is a community hospital by anybody's definition, it differs somewhat from a community hospital in that we have a very large volume of these cases. We're doing upwards of 6,000 total hips and total knees a year. We're collecting data that the typical community hospital doesn't go through the rigmarole of collecting all that data. And we're doing research. We're doing research and education. We have fellows. You were a fellow at HOI. So tell us a little bit about how that research atmosphere and academic atmosphere permeate at HOI and really makes a difference in terms of the quality and delivery of patient care.
Yeah, so I think we do an excellent job of controlling for our outcomes. And I think when we initially started collecting all this data, it was a little bit of a nerve-wracking time for us. I mean, you were here, before I was when we started, saying, hey, we're going to publish our national data for anyone to see. In fact, anyone watching the show can log in online and see our infection rates, how many issues we've had with our surgery. And so we took a big risk in doing that. But I think it gets us to put our money where our mouth is, and we actually have to back up the fact that we're publishing our data nationally, and we have, data that far exceeds the average hospital across the country. And so I think it's actually worked out in our benefit, and there's a lot of centers across the country that have kind of gone to that model. And I think that's why we're the second or third highest volume center for joint replacement in the nation, because we're transparent about our data, and I think we do a really good job of making sure we're giving the best patient experience possible.
So for somebody like you, a young, well-trained, fellowship-trained orthopedic surgeon, how much difference did it make to you where you were going to apply your trade, coming to the hospital that you were going to come to do the best you could in terms of delivering total hip and total knee replacements to the population? How big a factor was it coming to a hospital like HOI for you, and what does it mean to you?
I think it was probably one of the biggest factors in making my decision where I took my final job. Obviously, location is big for me as well. My wife has family local, and I grew up in the area, so that was another big factor. But the hospital itself was the single most important thing for me, because there are some places across the country where you just can't replicate what we've done at HOI. There's a lot of bureaucracy in medicine, and it's very hard to get the wheel moving, so to speak, to make things happen. So there's a lot of physicians and educators across the country who want to make things better, but there's a lot of red tape to make that happen. And the fact that it had already been done prior to my arrival at Hoag Orthopedic Institute really gave me confidence that I could practice the type of medicine that I wanted and do it in a safe, efficient way. And so that was one of the main driving factors for me.
Well, thanks for coming back after your fellowship, and we certainly enjoy having you here and look forward for you being here for many years on our faculty and helping us do what we do. Yeah. That kind of does it for us today. Thanks for tuning in, and we're from Hoag Orthopedic Institute. We're the experts at getting you back to you. See you next time.